Mother's Day is truly one of the nicest days that you can imagine. It's just a great day when we spend time and we lavish love and gifts on our family and especially on our mothers. And so it's really great to be here this morning. I'd like to also just very quickly mention to you, I was going to mention something and now I forgot. All right. Mothers, this morning we want to really center around you in a way that you will know that you're cared for, that you're loved, and that you're truly appreciated not only for who you are, but also for what you mean in our lives. Last week, Saturday, I did a funeral for a friend of mine that had passed away. He was about 82 years old. And in the same cemetery, I went to visit my mother's grave. I took her flowers, and I stood there and I spoke to her, and I prayed at that time. And remember the time that she raised me as a child so that I will never ever treat with disdain the love that I received as a child. Our goal this morning is to speak not because the world prescribes, but because it is the way that we treat our mothers. In the beginning of our lesson, I want to mention is that not every woman fits the mold of being a mother. There are millions of women that are single and will remain single for their entire lives. And so sometimes the feeling might be that they will never really be a mother and hence not fully woman. But that's not entirely true. Inadvertently, you become the mother of those who have got no parents and no mothers. And your role of stepping into their life is crucial, and hence we expand the idea of a mother. We also know there are married women that cannot have children. But that does not change the fact that you can be motherly to family and even to those who are dejected and rejected. There are some of us that have come here today where we have lost children through miscarriage, stillbirth, illness, or even tragedy. And so that sense of loss is again triggered, and those feelings are inundating your heart again this morning. But I want to speak to you about a comment that Meredith Hodge made. She was a woman similar to that. She was infertile and unable to have a child. And regarding Mother's Day, she made a comment and said that infertility had darkened my heart and tempted me to despair. Anticipating Mother's Day in fear, internally I wished over and over, please don't make the moms stand up. Please don't hand out flowers to moms. Please, no one wish me a happy Mother's Day. And she went on to say, it wasn't anger or jealousy, but my attention was more focused on my isolation and personal brokenness. I was grieving the loss of my long-time dream to be a mother, and I felt as though all eyes were on me, the barren, the childless woman in the congregation, the one who wasn't blessed. And I assumed people were staring at me thinking, I wonder what's wrong with her and why she doesn't have kids yet. It wasn't until I applied the gospel to my circumstance, prayed for guidance and allowed the Spirit to take over my heart that I began to see heart transformation and change in my response to Mother's Day. Every one of us are at very different places and spaces, even today. And we acknowledge that. And that is why Romans chapter 12, verse 15 is so powerful, where Paul says, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. And we've learned that to do that very adequately and understood the idea that sometimes it is difficult to rejoice with someone who is receiving the cup and your child is not that good. It's hard to celebrate the promotion in certain person's life and success when somebody else has lost a job. It's hard to celebrate the idea of marriage when you know someone's going through a very difficult and acrimonious divorce. And so we find it hard sometimes to celebrate in those moments. But the Bible does tell us that we need to give honor where honor is due. And because of that, we do so without bitterness. We do so because we are not just altruistic, but we also want people to feel that they are valued in the specific role that God had called them to. You see, Romans chapter 12 says that we do not downplay the pain, but in fact we acknowledge that. We want to honor that, and that there's nothing wrong with mourning the loss that we experienced or an empty womb. But that we do know is that we all come to the cross from various backgrounds to receive the consolation that we receive from God. Sam Crabtree recently wrote a blog where he said, Mother's Day is not primarily about being a mother or receiving honor, but thanking God for the mother he gave me and giving honor. This morning I'd like to call Susie forward, if you would, please. And I would, for us to hand out some gifts to children, to the parents, to the mothers. Sorry? Can I call the children to come forward? Not you, Gary. Some of the children, if you can please come forward. Why are children so nervous? Caden, what's the problem? Don't you want to come forward? Jake and Cole? Cole, are you shy? Come, bud. Jake? Yeah? Can the mothers all stand for us, please, so that we can just give you a prezi? Yes, of course. Andre, Johan, send your daughter forward. Don't be shy, baby. Hello. 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 Daar sy. Kry die presentjie hierso by Tannie Sue. Oh, isn't that just beautiful, hey? Yeah, skip the queue. En vir myne ook. Oh, isn't that too sweet? Emma? Oh, all right. Charlie, we can get that video ready. Hello, sweetie.
When we think of a mother's love,
When you've received your gift, please be seated. All right. There's a lot of moms that haven't received yet. Can we pass it on to them? There's Auntie Heather. There we go. There we go. Oh, boy. Thanks, Kate. You're a star. Auntie Janet also, that's right, yeah. There we go. We've got some praises. This Susie, yeah, we've got Alexander's fetching for his mom and granny. And okay. Have they all got it? Okay. Yeah, there's more there. Auntie Rose, who's going to take to Auntie Rose? Okay, Mom is in the cry room as well. And Auntie Rose, Jake, take another one to Auntie Rose. Or is Caden going to do? Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Has all the moms received?
Okay, take full.
Okay. Can I give you one?
Thanks.
Has every mom received? Ursula, have you received your prezi? Okay, Ursula's focus on her mission. All right. Brendan, I'd like you to watch this clip that we're going to be playing this morning.
When we think of a mother's love, we often associate it with warm hugs, nurturing care, and comforting words. But a mother's love is so much more than that. It's a fierce and unwavering force that transcends time and space. A love that endures through all of life's trials and tribulations. Mothers are the backbone of our families, the pillars of strength that hold everything together. They are the ones who bear the weight of the world on their shoulders, who sacrifice their own needs and desires to provide for their children. They are the ones who show us what it means to be resilient, to persevere in the face of adversity. A mother's love is a powerful thing. It is the foundation upon which we build our lives, the rock that we can always turn to when everything else is falling apart. It gives us the courage to take risks, to pursue our dreams, to become the best versions of ourselves. But being a mother is not just about providing for our practical needs. It's also about teaching us important life lessons, showing us how to be kind, compassionate, and resilient. It's about being there for us when we need a shoulder to cry on, a listening ear, or a word of encouragement. The impact of a mother's love is immeasurable. It shapes the way we see ourselves, the way we interact with others, and the way we approach the world. It gives us a sense of purpose and belonging, a deep sense of connection to something greater than ourselves. So let us honor and celebrate the mothers in our lives. Let us acknowledge the sacrifices they have made, the challenges they have overcome, and the unwavering love they have given. Let us thank them for all they have done and continue to do, and let us never forget the powerful impact they have on our lives. To all the mothers out there, know that your love is a beacon of hope in a world that can be challenging and chaotic. You are the ones who show us what it means to be strong, to be resilient, and to be compassionate. You are the ones who make the world a better place, one child at a time. Thank you for all that you do, and know that your love and dedication are appreciated, admired, and cherished more than words could ever express. So let's celebrate the power of a mother's love. It is a force that can move mountains, and it is something that will stay with us forever.
In the remaining thoughts this morning, I want us to have a look about the Christian walk of God. I did a research this week, and I tried to find, interestingly enough, how much references there are to God being and having the characteristics of a mother. And I was blown away just how many there actually are. And this idea that accentuates and elevates the mother is often what we can have in our own walk with God. And it's an attribute of love that every one of us need to embody and embrace. Maureen Haskins once wrote, and she said, "Before you were conceived, I wanted you. Before you were born, I loved you. Before you were here an hour, I would die for you." This is the miracle of love. And the idea of love is inseparable from the love of a Christian and obedience to Christ. It's interesting that in John chapter 13, verse 34 to 35, Jesus speaks of the absolute characteristics of love. And he enforces it by the idea that he gives us a commandment to love one another. And he speaks of the recognizable character trait within the life of a Christian, and that is that we love one another. I don't want you to misunderstand the idea of your love for sports or for your sports team or for pizzas or for anything else that is nice. That is not love. That is transactional love. That is a love that is maybe acknowledged as something that you like. But what we're speaking of here is a love that is outside of the space of generality and commonality. It speaks of a love that is deep and is godly love. A love that is unselfish, a love that is giving whether it receives back or not. Kindergarten boy was asked, well, how do you spell love in your home? He went to his teacher and he hugged her and he says, this is how we define love in our home. Christian love walks around and embraces. 1 Thessalonians 2, Paul speaks, and he says to the church, we were gentle among you like a nursing mother, taking care of her own children. So, being affectionately desirous of you, we were ready to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you were very dear to us. And so the idea of motherly love is deep. It's deeper than just the idea of raising children, washing dishes, making up beds. It's far greater than that. I'd like to suggest a few qualities of a mother that makes her exceptional. Firstly, that a mother's love is sacrificial. I want you to listen carefully to a teacher that had a discussion with young children and said to them, I want you to suppose that your mother baked a pie and there were 6 of you. Your mother, your father, and 4 children. What percentage of the pie would you get? The young boy raised up and he was very excited and he said, ma'am, it'll be 1/5. In other words, it'll be 20% of the pie that I would personally get. And the teacher very disappointedly said to him, well, Johnny, I hear what you said, but unfortunately that fraction isn't correct. In fact, it should be 1/6. And so Johnny turned around, he said, well, then you don't know my mother, because more than likely she would not want any pie and give each one of us more. And isn't that exactly what a mother does? Her willingness to sacrifice for her children, her willingness to sacrifice her own well-being and her own selfish needs so that her children can be cared for and cared. We think of Moses' mother, who was willing to risk her life in order to carry out the plan to save her son. We see so many examples of this, where in fact Solomon honors his mother in Proverbs chapter 31 and speaks of this mother that is honored in the city streets and everywhere by her husband and her children. But we also find that the love of Jesus Christ is shown in Ephesians 5, where husbands are called up higher and said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. In other words, it calls us to a higher sense of love and giving. A love that is exponentially different to what this world could ever emulate for us. We also look at John and the text that was read by John Mark, where he speaks about this is how we know what love is. That he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. Anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how is it possible that the love of God abides within him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deeds and in truth. In other words, we constantly seek the good of each other that is emulated by mothers. Sacrificial love means that you maintain the unity. Like a mother looks after her children and gathers them together when it disturbs her, when there's disharmony in the family. That's what a mother does. The second place, a mother's love is unconditional. In other words, here we find that it doesn't matter whether you are in the wealthiest family of this nation or in the Western Cape or you belong to a gang. every mother that I have seen have done the most incredible thing to stand with their children in the most difficult times that they've ever needed to face. I was in the High Court many years ago on a different matter, and as I watched, a young man was being tried for murder. His mother sat next to him, or his mother sat in the there and said, "That's my child." I looked at this kind of dissonance that I saw. Here was a child that took the life of other children, yet you as a mother will still love him. And I've often wondered about that. But I've also seen mothers that stand by their children, sometimes at times when they really need that kind of endorsement. There was a wonderful story told by Jack Exum, who was a wonderful preacher many years ago, and he speaks of a young girl that ran away to seek a fortune in the cities. And what so often happens to runaways is that they become cannon fodder to the people that are streetwise. She ended up being a prostitute, selling herself for drugs, and she came into a restaurant to see one of her customers. And leaning against the salt shaker, she saw a picture of herself, a photograph that was leaning against this. And she looked at the photograph and recognized that it was her. She turned the photograph around and it says, "I love you, please come home." I've been there when a man came out of prison after 8 years and seen his parents in Langa walking into the door. And when the mother says, "I've been waiting for you for 8 years." The welcome of a mother every time, even though a child has been hurt, even though a child has turned his back on that which is law and which is righteous, the mother always receives them back. And that is why a mother loves regardless of failures. She's learned true love, and she emulates true love, which is systemic within the heart of a mother. I was going to add something else, what science actually has discovered recently, that when a mother raises a child and actually gives birth to a child, they start to share some of the most important genetic materials when she gives birth to that child and brings it into this world. It is also stated by science and proven that some of the essential matters from that child, stem cells, is passed over to the mother that helps that mother heal in moments of great difficulty. And when I read that passage, it absolutely screamed of 1 Timothy when Paul says women will be saved through childbirth. I am blown away every single time when I read God's word, just the depth and the length and the height and the expansiveness of its word that is pre-scientific but endorses this incredible relationship that God has designed between man and human beings. I'm reminded of God's love in Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, where he speaks about God shows his love to us while we were still sinners. Christ died for us. You see, brethren, sometimes in our walk, when people have disappointed or they have done something wrong, we pull back from them. We are so arrogant that we feel that we've never made mistakes. We start to push people aside, and you are not somebody I'm going to lie into my sphere again. How dare you? How dare you and I do things like that? You see, brethren, this is the kind of thing that God says, I want you to understand that I'm not like you. I am different. He says, as far as the east is from the west, so I will remove your sin from you. And that's why there is no place for arrogance, no place for pride in the kingdom of God. You see, it was a wonderful story that I read last night, and I thought, let me add it into this wonderful narrative. It was about this guy, and he was really battling financially. And so he said to his wife, tomorrow I'm going to see my boss, and I'm going to talk to him about a financial increase to my pay. I really need a raise because it's really, really tough. He felt very nervous and really apprehensive, and then he approached his boss, at work, and he said to him, look, I need to talk to you. We're really battling at the moment, and we'd love to have a bit of a raise. And so the boss turned around and said, absolutely, I was meaning to talk to you about that. Come inside, let's finalize the paperwork. That raise is yours with immediate effect. The night he came into his household, and as he walked into the house, he hugged and kissed his wife, and he sat down to a wonderful dinner. And next to his plate, he found this beautiful note written by his wife, which read, congratulations, darling, I knew you'd get the raise. These things will tell you how much I love you, regardless of whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whether we are struggling or whether we are living in opulence, doesn't matter. But as he got up to fetch his sweets and the dessert, he picked up off the floor another note that is fallen from her pocket. And inside that note he read, don't worry about not getting the raise, my angel. You deserve it anyway. These things that I've done for you tell you how much I love you. Ironic, she was prepared for both instances. And sometimes, brethren, we find women that is just in a transactional relationship that may never feel loved, regardless of which way the ball swings, and are always ready there to flagellate. But that is not who God is. And so the third point I want to touch on this morning, that a mother's love is expectant. It was wonderful to hear about a Jewish mother that was walking with her 2 children in a stroller. And as she walked down the street, she spoke to somebody and said, I'd like to introduce you to my one son, the doctor, and this is my son, the lawyer. And when the mother looked at this lot, she said, excuse me? She says, oh yes, I'm expectant that that's who they will be one day. And so a mother is expectant. A mother always hopes, always desires the very best for her children. Mothers have a way of showing their children their expectations. And sometimes it comes through discipline. And that is why Proverbs 29:15 is so powerful, that says, the rod and rebuke gives wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Sometimes the discipline is patient and calm and instructive, but sometimes it can literally calcify your whole body. I can tell you something now, brethren, and I want to speak to some of our mothers. If you're a mother that is permissive, know this: you don't love your child. But if you put strong boundaries of yes and no within the life of the child, longitudinal psychological study will tell you you raise confident children. When you empower and you feel that somehow jy met daai kind se nonsens goed praat, are you looking for trouble? You will live to watch the rebelliousness in your child. But if you live a life that is from a mother who looks at you and immediately you know exactly what she's saying. My mom has what we call the death stare. Literally, she could speak volumes just by looking at you. And I can tell you, I can probably count on one hand the times that she addressed me, and she would have physically fine-tuned me. I'll never forget, Sue and I were going out, and I think we were 21 or 22. And for my mom, by the way, I need to just tell you, 12 o'clock, you need to be in the house. 11:45, I rocked up with my girlfriend. We came into the house, and I walked into her fist in the kitchen. And she said to me, I told you, 12 o'clock it is. And I said, it's 5 to 12. She says, yeah, but 12 o'clock means 11:45. Always shifting the boundaries. But here's the key. Today I live a very disciplined life. Today I can tell you now, my yes is yes and my no is no. And I will not compromise on that. Why? Because I was taught by a mother. A single mother that was strong-willed. A single mother that was a strong, godly woman, but had no question about her. She will not watch you drift from God and allow you to do your own thing, but she will confront you, and she will exhort you to live a life of God that is powerfully entrenched in His will. There's an Amish proverb that says, there is a vast difference between putting your nose in other people's business and putting your heart in other people's problems. And there is a difference. In other words, we get involved because we help. It's not your right to walk into the life of any individual, but it is a privilege to enter into that sacred space, to be able to be a mother that cares and that is never questioned. Christianity, in the last instance, is not a religion of the individual, but it's indeed a religion of community, where expectant love is accepted, where we expect a high level of ethical behavior and moral conformance to the gospel of Christ, where we speak as a family and we respect each other to the highest degree. In conclusion, there's so much to learn from being a mother, but most important, what we find in a mother is the sacrificial love and unconditional love and expectant love. A love that is walking on a specific trajectory that wants to shape the character of their children. I'm going to read you a poem that I really love, and just part of it which I really enjoy. It's called Reflections of a Mother. I gave you life, but cannot live it for you. I can teach you things, but I cannot make you learn. I can take you to church, but I cannot make you believe. I can teach you right from wrong, but I cannot always decide for you. I can love you as a child, but I cannot place you in God's family. I can pray for you, but I cannot make you walk with God. I can teach you about Jesus, but I cannot make Jesus your Lord. You see, brethren, the mother knows where her limitations are. Her mother knows that ultimately, hopefully, the kind of values that she's inculcated within her children, a sound and a healthy relationship of deep respect for the deity of Christ and the lordship of his kingdom, understanding that his kingdom is inclusive no matter where you come from, no matter how broken you are when you walk into the kingdom, but understanding that here there is an exclusive allegiance to Jesus Christ our Lord and doing things according to his will. That is every one of our choices. Many of us that are sitting here today have made that choice to follow Christ, and in some way or the other, our mother had contributed to that. I'm reminded of a grandmother sitting in this building. Her grandson called her and said, Ganna, and went to the baptistry and said, one day I want to be baptized as well. Let me say this to you, brethren. A grandmother, your role in the life of your children and your grandchildren cannot be minimized. If you are here this morning and there's a child that you connect with, even though you haven't got children of your own, have the heart of a mother. Connect with a child. There are so many children desirous of having someone that loves like a mother does. And every one of us can do that this morning. I pray that today, maybe the love of a mother would draw you to obey the gospel of Christ. And we'll do that even though it's Mother's Day. But I pray today that this day for each mom will be a special day, and that you will know that your labor and the effort that you've put in to the lives of us is acknowledged and honored before the throne of a holy God. Let's sing the final song of encouragement as we close this morning.